So, the film begins with a scene showing several dead people in a restaurant. What exactly happened here? How did these people die? To find out, the story takes us back into the past. We see the main character, Nancy, who is taking a pregnancy test in the fields, and it turns out positive. She becomes very scared because she's unmarried and hadn't planned for any of this. Now, Nancy heads to her dad's restaurant, where she works as a manager, feeling tense. On the way, her car runs out of petrol, so she decides to walk the rest of the distance. Then she comes across Bobby, an employee at the restaurant, riding a bicycle. He offers her a lift and they both reach the restaurant together. Upon arriving, Nancy's father tells her, "Tonight, you'll have to manage the restaurant because I have to attend a meeting." Nancy agrees, thinking she can handle everything. Her dad adds, "I've asked Jack to stay and help you," which makes Nancy upset. She doesn't like Jack at all and requests her father to let Bobby stay instead, but he refuses, saying he has already spoken to Jack. Nancy then walks out of her dad's office and suddenly starts vomiting. She steps outside the restaurant where Jack is smoking a cigarette. Seeing her in that condition, he realizes that Nancy is pregnant. He asks her, "Does your dad know about this?" Nancy stays silent. Just then, her father also comes outside. Seeing him, Nancy gets nervous, but he doesn't seem to notice her condition. He had just come to tell Jack, "Welcome every customer warmly and Nancy will help you with that." Nancy couldn't hold back anymore and finally asked her dad, "What kind of meeting is this? Is it really that urgent for you to go?" Her dad replied, "After your mom's death, I felt very lonely. That's why I've decided to get married and I'm going to meet a girl." Hearing this, Nancy's sadness grew even deeper. She now had to prepare herself to share her father with someone else. Nancy and Jack then went back inside the restaurant. Everything was going smoothly until a gang of young boys appeared outside the hotel. They were behaving recklessly, racing bikes, making loud noises, and they had even killed a rabbit nearby. In such an environment, the customers might leave. Nancy became furious and went outside to drive them away. She threatened them and told them to leave, but the boys didn't listen and instead followed her into the hotel. Wearing masks, they mocked her by asking for the menu and pretending to place orders. Nancy lost her temper. She told them, "Are you going to leave or should I call the police?" When they still didn't move, Nancy pretended to call the police. This scared the boys and one of them came up to her and said, "We're leaving now but we'll definitely come back." The way those boys insulted Nancy made everyone around laugh at her. Seeing this, Nancy became even more furious. She gathered the entire staff and said, "I am your manager and it's your duty to respect me." In response to this, Jack said, "All of this belongs to your dad, not you. You don't deserve any credit." He also told her, "We are more capable than you." Nancy became furious and due to Jack's insolent behavior, she fired him on the spot. Jack was shocked and said, "You can't do this." But Nancy replied firmly, "I'm the manager now and my decisions will be followed." What did Jack do? In anger, he removed his apron and walked out. Nancy had acted emotionally. She wasn't even sure what had come over her. She went to the washroom, washed her face and tried to calm herself down. Just then we see Bobby waiting for her outside the washroom. He said, "I can stay tonight to help you. You've dismissed Jack and it's not safe for you to be here alone." But Nancy became even angrier. She thought Bobby was pitying her and trying to befriend her. She told him directly, "You're not my type and you don't need to impress me just to be friends." Hearing this, Bobby was deeply hurt and quietly walked away, leaving Nancy alone. Soon the staff's shift ended and Nancy was left all by herself. She now had to manage everything alone through the night. Nancy started by cleaning up the place. When no customers showed up, she called her dad. On the call, she told him, "I've fired Jack." Her dad was surprised. Nancy explained, "He was disrespecting me in front of everyone. He insulted me, what else could I do?" Nancy's dad was worried because she was going to stay alone at the restaurant all night. He told her, "Stay alert and if there's any problem, let me know immediately." But Nancy wasn't afraid at all. She played some music and continued working while enjoying herself. However, that enjoyment didn't last long, only until she saw the same gang of boys outside the hotel who had come earlier that afternoon. Seeing them, she got angry and made an announcement over the speaker. "Leave this place right now. If you don't, I'll call the police." Right after the announcement, she realized that all the doors and windows of the hotel were still open. She knew the police might take time to arrive, and if the boys decided to harm her, things could escalate quickly. Panicking a little, she rushed to shut and lock all the doors and windows. Then she quickly called the police and reported, "There's a gang of bikers outside the hotel. They're harassing me." The police assured her that an inspector would be sent right away. As soon as she hung up the phone, she started hearing knocking sounds coming from all sides of the hotel. Terrified, she hid under the counter, trying to stay as quiet as possible. The knocking continued for a while, loud and relentless, until suddenly it stopped. Nancy felt a moment of relief, but then came another knock, this one louder and more distinct. Heart pounding, she cautiously got up from under the counter and peeked outside. To her relief, it was the police officer. Without wasting a second, she hurried to open the door. As soon as the officer arrived, he told Nancy, "I'll need to fully investigate this place." He carefully inspected every corner of the hotel. But apart from Nancy, he found no one, not inside and not even outside the building. After thoroughly checking the area, he reported back to the station, "No threat detected here. It's possible the girl is just hallucinating. I'll stay with her for a while to calm her down." Then he turned to Nancy and asked her to make him a cup of coffee, taking a seat nearby. There was something unsettling about the way he looked at her. It made Nancy uncomfortable. A moment later, the officer approached her again and said, "You need to come with me to the police station. That gang has been involved in serious crimes, and you should file a formal complaint." But something felt wrong. Before she could process anything, the officer grabbed her by the arm and started pulling her along. Suddenly, the same gang of boys appeared from behind and launched a brutal attack on the officer. Within moments, they killed him. Nancy was horrified. Shaken and terrified, she ran into the garage to hide. She was trembling, unsure how to call for help or what to do next. But then, luck was on her side. Bobby had been on his way to check on her. Seeing him gave Nancy a surge of hope and courage. She quickly opened the door, signaled him to stay quiet, and pulled him inside the hotel. And now we see that the gang members had entered the hotel. Nancy, in a moment of desperation, had managed to message her friend, asking them to either call for help or come themselves. But before anything else could happen, the gang captured both Nancy and Bobby. Nancy noticed the keys to her car lying nearby, just within reach, but with her hands tied, she couldn't grab them. One of the men taped Nancy's mouth shut, bound her hands, and locked her inside a room. Inside, Nancy managed to untie her hands. She was terrified, trembling from fear. To save her life, she grabbed a nearby knife and stabbed the man in the back. He immediately collapsed, unconscious. When Nancy removed his mask, she was shocked. It was none other than Petey, one of the employees at her own hotel. A few moments later, Bobby entered the room, his hands no longer tied. Nancy immediately understood what was going on. Bobby was also part of this group. And these weren't the gang members from earlier that day. They were her own staff, employees from her hotel, now seeking revenge. Even Bobby, whom she once considered a friend, had joined them after being insulted by her. To explain what led to this betrayal, the scene flashes back in time. We see Jack, furious after losing his job. Determined to take revenge on Nancy at any cost, he dropped off his co-workers at their homes and took Petey with him. They went to confront the gang of bikers who had shown up at the hotel earlier that afternoon. Once there, Jack pulled out a knife and attacked one of the gang members, injuring him. Frightened, the gang backed off. Jack then played loud music, intimidating them and forced them to dance to his tune. He eventually pointed a gun at Petey, ordering him to kill the gang members. But Petey couldn't go through with it. Because of his hesitation, the boys got the chance to escape. After the gang members ran away, Jack told Petey to meet him at the restaurant that night. Jack left the scene carrying the gang's masks and clothes. Later that night, he met with his other colleagues at the restaurant. He told them, "I know Nancy has hurt each one of you. She's a terrible manager. If you want to take revenge on her, this is your chance. Support me." The staff, already filled with resentment, agreed without hesitation. It became clear, Jack was the mastermind behind everything that had happened. Bobby joined Jack's plan because he believed it was just to scare Nancy, not to actually harm her. At first, the group focused on frightening Nancy. But when she called the police, everything spiraled out of control. The group quickly hid, but when the officer arrived, they panicked. And together they ended up killing him to protect their secret. At this point, Bobby had second thoughts. He removed his mask and went to help Nancy, still feeling sympathy for her deep down. He had always liked her, despite everything. The scene shifts back to the present. Nancy, now aware of everything, was furious. Petey, who had been stabbed by Nancy in self-defense, was badly injured. The group picked him up and carried him inside the hotel. Now they were trying to decide who to call for help. Someone who could possibly save Petey's life. But this wasn't a normal situation. This was a police matter. Who could they call? Bobby, noticing Nancy's car keys lying nearby, and he quickly picks them up. Just then, one of Jack's colleagues rushes in and tells him, Nancy has escaped. Enraged, Jack immediately orders him to go after her, and tells Bobby to follow her too. But instead of obeying, Bobby turns around and punches Jack straight in the face. Meanwhile, Nancy's father is shown trying to call the hotel to check on her, but no one is answering. Back at the hotel, the man chasing Nancy is about to catch her, but she cleverly throws boiling water on him. The water scalds his face severely, and within seconds he dies in excruciating pain. Nancy then quietly sneaks into the restroom where she sees Bobby, wounded and bleeding. Determined to help him, she crawls toward him from under the tables. At the same time, Nancy's friend arrives at the hotel. Bobby, struggling, tries to pass Nancy's car keys to her so she can escape. But seeing the horrific scene, Nancy's friend panics and runs away without even attempting to call the police. Nancy now finally has her car keys. Taking her chance, she dashes out of the hotel, carefully avoiding Jack's sight. But just as she's about to make it out, Jack spots her. He grabs her by the hair and brutally stabs her in the back. Then, believing she's dead, he drags her body back inside the hotel. Jack, thinking he is the only one left alive, strips off his blood-stained clothes and calls the police. He plans to act like a witness who just stumbled upon the crime scene, pretending he had no part in it. He believes he can escape this nightmare, leave town, and start a new life, but he has no idea there's still a twist left. Nancy is still alive. With all her strength, she pulls the knife out of her stomach and drags herself to Bobby's lifeless body. Seeing him dead, she breaks down in tears. Because in the end, Bobby was the only one who truly cared about her. A burning fire of revenge lit up Nancy's heart. Summoning all her remaining strength, she got into her car and drove straight to Jack's house. Once there, she knocked on his door. At that moment, Jack wasn't expecting anyone. He casually opened the door, only to find Nancy standing there, bloodied but alive. Before he could react, Nancy drove a knife straight into his neck. Jack collapsed instantly. Nancy had finally taken her revenge. But with that act, the last bit of strength left her body. She stumbled forward a few steps and collapsed on the ground. Lying there, she thought of her mother, the warmth, the memories, the loss. Just then, a car screeched to a halt nearby. It was her father. He had seen Nancy's car and followed it here. Rushing toward her, he fell to his knees, panicked and horrified at her condition. "Hold on, Nancy. I'll take you to the hospital. You'll be okay. Please stay with me," he cried. But Nancy, with a faint smile, gently placed her hand on his and whispered, "Dad, I'm pregnant." And with that final truth spoken, the screen fades to black. The movie ends here.